National Ace in the house. Hey now. Hey now. I know all the celebrities in the other room, but we got a lot of great gems for y'all today.
Yeah, let's just let everyone settle down and we'll try to get started very soon. So welcome everyone. I know our panel is standing between you at lunch and possibly your flight home or fun Vegas weekend. But we will try to start on time and finish on time, okay? But we do hope all of you can stay for the full panel because we are here to discuss a key issue that's really critical for the long-term growth of global economy and entrepreneurship. And we have a great panel here. My name is Yifan. I'm the US Tech Correspondent for Nikkei Asia, which is the flagship English publication for Japanese media group Nikkei and the sister publication of the Financial Times. And during my reporting, I noticed while Alibaba and a lot of other internet platforms have created so many opportunities for entrepreneurs around the world, but there are a lot of hurdles many groups are facing, like limited access to funding, mentorship, and market. That's why I think these kind of hurdles have really unfairly held back a lot of communities. And I'm really excited to hear from our esteemed panelists to share their insights on this key issue we should all care about. So to kick things off, maybe let the panelists to introduce themselves and their background and who and what group of entrepreneurs do you think is still very much overlooked or underserved in this country?
Ladies first.
So, hi everyone, my name is Alejandra Molina. I am the co-founder of MetaBronx. We're an accelerator for underrepresented founders in New York City. Originally from Peru, have had academic and professional experience in 14 countries, speak 4 languages, and now I'm supporting Gen with our Gen Invest programs, which includes grants programs, mentorship programs, as well as a global business angel network to fund entrepreneurs worldwide.
Well, first and foremost, we want to thank on behalf of National Asian Pacific Islander Chamber of Commerce, as well as Island Avenue. We want to thank Alibaba.com for such a phenomenal conference and bringing such great entrepreneurs together. As I mentioned, I represent National Ace as well as Island Avenue, an apparel brand. And the goal today, at least from my point of view, is to be able to share some gems that we picked up along the way as far as our entrepreneur journeys, especially coming from underserved communities as well as underserved entrepreneurs.
Thank you. Hi everybody. Thanks again for having us here at Alibaba. My name is Alex Ruiz. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been in tech for about 20 years. And during my time, I grew up in the Bronx, grew up inner city. And my path to being an entrepreneur was a difficult one in that I didn't have the resources, I didn't have the mentorship, I didn't have the access that would have helped me be able to do a lot of these things a lot faster. And so seeing that over the last 15 years, something that's been close to my heart is how do we make that better? So I'm here representing a group called LaFamilia Foundation. We help entrepreneurs and VCs become successful by giving them mentorship, giving them education, giving them access. And I think that that's something that I'm very excited and passionate to talk about today.
So to kick things off, maybe we should talk about like who and what group of entrepreneurs are still very much underserved, and why should we even care about this issue? Who want to get that?
Ladies first,
So I would say that there's a plethora of entrepreneurs that are currently underserved and that are lacking access to resources. The ones that I've worked with the most have been to support Latino founders. Like I was a tech founder too in the past, and ed tech. And one of the biggest hurdles when you're an underrepresented entrepreneur is that there's like biases against like being a woman. There's also the part of like being Latina, and then there's also lack of access to resources like VC connections or like understanding how to get a credit loan if you're a small medium business. Understanding how to get access to grants, and I've seen that a lot of times. Like for example, 2% of VC money goes to women, and then out of that, 0.1% goes to Latina women and Black women. So that's just like for you guys to have an image or a reference of how the ecosystem is at this moment. But yeah, that's some of the areas in which we've seen that underrepresented entrepreneurs like women, people of color, There's also the factor of like entrepreneurs with disabilities. So through my work at Gen, we've seen work that we give out grants and mentorship to veterans as well as like entrepreneurs and SMEs whose founders were with disabilities.
If I could build on that, I think that those are exactly the types of groups we go after, but I look at it a little bit differently. I think that there's two components. There's a socioeconomic component, and there's you come from a dominant culture component. And so a Latin founder in the US is going to face very different things than a Latin founder in Latin America, depending on if they come from the dominant group or not. Right? If you come from a dominant group, maybe you have access to the right schools. You might have access to the right education and then the right network. If you're in a different socioeconomic ladder, do you have access to mentorship? Do you have access to capital to start your business? And so those things are the things that we try and address with our foundation and in general thinking about how we help entrepreneurship.
I could speak to, from a Asian Pacific Islander point of view. Obviously during the pandemic, there was a prevalence of Asian hate, and unfortunately that obviously impacted a lot of our business. From a Pacific Islander point of view, I noticed that there's a lack of education, just basic business 101 education that's lacking within our communities. Not only that, even before we address the issue of access to capital, there's a lack of access to actual relationships, because the majority of the time, a lot of the time, the business owners live in affluent communities, not our underserved communities. And unlike other folks, I decided to displace my family and live in the affluent community to build these relationships with successful entrepreneurs. And lastly is the lack of representation. To contextualize things, as a Samoan, LA, born and raised in LA, there was no one within the apparel industry that actually looked like me. And so just like every other entrepreneur here, when we see a problem, we provide a solution. And I decided to launch a clothing line, and here we are today. So those are the things that we actually face with from an underserved point of view, and our goal is to be able to address those issues.
Great. So in Silicon Valley, when I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, especially like API founders, they all talk about the bias and stereotype they face, like, Asians can only be CTO, we're not the CEO. How does this kind of bias or stereotype hold back underserved communities, and how should we combat those stereotypes and bias?
Yeah, and as I had mentioned that, we're all solution-based when it comes to entrepreneurship, right? And it always seems like there's a ceiling when it comes to API folks. And so the goal is to continue to climb Mount Everest. The goal is to be able to establish businesses at the highest level and make those successful from an Asian Pacific Islander point of view, right?
Alejandra, you also mentioned access to capital has been a real headache for a lot of entrepreneurs. And as like a program like MetaBronx, what do you think a program like MetaBronx can provide to those entrepreneurs that like a normal startup accelerator or VC can't provide?
Yeah, I could talk about that, the fact that accelerators really, if it's catered towards the demographic that you're part of, they will understand the specific hurdles that you have to go through, and they can connect you with the specific mentors and venture capitalists and clients that would understand the problem that you're trying to solve. And that is because then you'll be able to see representation of people that are successfully doing their business, successfully funding entrepreneurs that look like you, that come from the same background as you, so they understand. And then you won't have to not waste your time explaining and translating everything that you're building to them. A lot of times what we've seen is that entrepreneurs come to us and they tell us we've been fundraising, but it's a lot of back and forth with the investor to try to explain to them what is the problem that you're solving, because since they haven't experienced those problems, they don't understand the value of solving them. So when you work with an accelerator like MetaBronx, or we work with Gen that has such a plethora of diverse mentors from all around the world from diverse perspectives, you won't have to spend that time explaining to them what is it that you're trying to solve. And then in the sense of funding, you mentioned with Gen we have the Small Business Grants program that is part of our Gen Invest division. And with that we run programs to support SMEs all around the US with funding from $5,000 to $25,000, and we give them in grants. So this is philanthropic giving. That's one of the things that I would like to share with the entrepreneurs in the room, is that the only way to get funding for your business is not just VC. You have also access to grants like ours, like the ones that we launched. We work since 2020 with different partners to provide grants to entrepreneurs, and so far we've disbursed more than $26 million to entrepreneurs in the US. We've supported 1,800 plus entrepreneurs, and this is the way that we are supporting their growth, and also during the pandemic it started as a way for them to uplift their businesses during such hard times.
That's great work. Like you said, a lot of the times these kind of programs is not just about capital, it's also about finding people that look like you, sounds like you, or have share the same culture, because community support is also so important to the success of a business and the founders. I think LaFamilia Foundation also aims to build a community that connects Latin founders and VCs. Alex, why do you think a network like LaFamilia that connects people by their heritage is so important? And are there any unique challenges, Latin founders face here in this country?
Absolutely. Well, Latin founders and Latinos in general are going to be the largest minority in the United States in the coming years. And so there's a huge opportunity for them to participate and be part of the GDP and give back. And so we see this huge opportunity to nurture them and to help them, in large part because many of them don't have access to, like we've talked about, some of these education and these other components that can make you be successful. And even just putting a community together, what we found that there's things like serendipity, right? If you get the right people in the room, kind of like what we're doing here, you're going to have conversations. Some of those conversations are going to turn to maybe a business meeting. Maybe they're going to turn into a connection that happens. And so you're more likely to do that with people that you have an affinity with. And so sometimes getting the group together, because they're Latins, is going to help them be able to connect. And through that, it's going to give them the ability to make connections that will help them in their business. And we're all about finding those small points that can really help somebody be successful. It takes a lot of luck, it takes a lot of work to be successful as an entrepreneur, and a little bit here and there can really add up.
Great. Like Alejandra mentioned, like VC is actually not your only options to get fundings, and I think it's fair to say access to capital is one of the biggest hurdles a lot of overlooked entrepreneurs are facing nowadays. So let's just give the audience a little bit of your secret tip. Like what kind of innovative financing ways or methods you notice that can be really helpful for certain communities or groups that are not very commonly known?
Well, I'm a big relationship person. And so coming to a network like this, aside from all the different suppliers that you'll actually meet, there's relationships out there in which you can build, in which maybe there's smaller regional banks that you can connect with. But even before that, we just got to make sure that, underserved entrepreneurs, in terms of their personal credit file as well as their business credit file, is fundable, right? In which at that point, funding can be feasible. So just making sure that, bank statements and all the different financials is up to par, in which it makes you qualify as a fundable business.
Yes, come to CoCreate next year.
Yes, absolutely.
Alejandra?
Yes, I would say that there's three resources that I would like to share with the group of people right now. It's that there is, like you said, networks and having trusted partners for your business. With Global Entrepreneurship Network, we have the Global Business Angel Network, and that includes representation in 79 countries, and we have as members regional angel networks. So we work with ACA, which is the American Capital Association, the Angel Capital Association of the US. We also work with Yifan, which is the European Business Angel Network. We work with Yifan, which is the African Business Angel Network. And the way that we realized that this was such a good opportunity for entrepreneurs is that we provide them with a trusted and vetted, globally connected network of investors that they can tap into to grow their businesses. The other one is the Equitable Access Program, and that one is the one that we're launching. We've been doing it since last year, but this year we started our Boost Camp, which is to give mentorship and technical assistance to small business owners that are credit challenged. So if you're a small business owner that doesn't have a good credit score, doesn't really understand how the financial system works, this program, EAP, Equitable Access Program, provides you with mentorship, assessment tools, as well as events like networking opportunities. And we also will be launching a fund where we'll be providing credit opportunities for credit challenge entrepreneurs. And then the last one is that we always mention it's the power of community and understanding that we cannot work in silos. So if you are a woman founder, if you're a Latino founder, if you're a Black founder, an Asian founder, like connecting with different groups, because there's always resources that you can tap into. So unlocking those opportunities and giving a chance to get more connected in the ecosystem.
I would just add one more, and this is probably one that all of you have experienced, which is, what's the extension of friends and family? And that ends up being angels in my world. And so there's a whole group of individuals that want to support businesses, want to support entrepreneurs. And so part of what LaFamilia does is help connect some entrepreneurs with angels. And we're actually building more capabilities there because they're that one step below VC. Right? VCs have very specific things they're looking for from a return. They want to see a company be doing X, Y, Z. Whereas angels may be driven more by mission, by helping you individually if they get to know you. And so it's kind of like that next step. After you get to friends and family, you got to go to that. Can we find angels that can help us?
I would like to harp on what Alex had mentioned. Obviously, with VC funding, there's the terms as well as the qualification is a lot more stringent. But when you may have, I guess you could coin it as angel investing, and sometimes those are just family and friends. And, again, you reach out to your network, and let me just expound on that. That's why we're here, because there may be someone that you meet here that has some capital just sitting on the sideline, and you're able to create that relationship, provide them with some type of business plan, as well as some kind of term sheet. You may be able to find funding here at CoCreate, which is why you should come every year.
But a lot of people come to CoCreate or event like this doesn't just look for people bankrolling their ventures. They also come here to look for mentors or experienced entrepreneurs are here actually looking to mentor some young entrepreneurs. Like how should we create a effective mentorship program that can match those people who need mentorship and people who want to mentor people?
How many people have mentors here? Like, raise your hands. Okay, only a few. How many of you would know how to find a mentor? Raise your hand if you read it. See, this is exactly what we see sometimes when you're not coming from an environment where mentorship or having people that are role models that you want to emulate or learn from is common. Right? And so part of what we do at LaFamilia is how do you actually find a mentor, start that conversation and make it effective. And there's things that you need to do prior to that. What do you want to get out of mentorship, right? You can't just go to somebody and say, be my mentor. It's, do you want a skill? Do you want connections? Do you want experience? And I think that mentorship is a two-way street. It's not just about the mentor providing something. It's also the mentee has to provide something back, make it worthwhile. Because if a mentor's going into a relationship, they also want to feel like they're getting something out of that relationship. And so I just wanted to say that piece of it, that it is a two-way street, but often we don't even know how to start it. And so there's organizations that can help create some of those connections to start that process, to get you better at even saying, hey, will you help me? Will you teach me something? Right? And that's an important piece.
But yeah, we're building up on that with the Global Entrepreneurship Network. You can go into our website, joinglobal.org, and you create a profile, and there's an option for you to opt in into being matched with our advisors or mentors. And it's something that we do with our community. As I mentioned, it's a global entrepreneurship pool of mentors. So we work with not only entrepreneurs, not only investors, but also government agencies. We work with universities, with entrepreneurship support organizations like LaFamilia. So I would definitely recommend checking out the website, joinglobal.org, doing your profile and looking at all our, we call them VAMs, like volunteers, advisors, and mentors. And getting access to that, it's free. So it's a way for you to make it easier for you instead of like having to go out there and start researching. We already have a vetted list of them that you can reach out to. But it is very important to also look not only for mentors, but one thing I learned as an entrepreneur is to look for sponsors. So the difference between that is that you will connect with people that want to mentor you, they'll give you advice, but a sponsor is someone that would actually give you the actual opportunity, not just like from words, but will say your name in the right space, that will provide you client lists or leads, that will be sharing the benefits of your product to people everywhere he or she goes. And it's really important to get those type of people also in your network and like in your community.
You know, I can't help to emphasize a forum like this, like CoCreate. You know, to all entrepreneurs, again, you guys see who all of the speakers are throughout these 2 days, right? And if in fact these are tie-ins within your industry, you need to be here. You know, I'm a proponent of the mantra of you got to go where the action is at, right? And so by being here, now you have access to these high-level relationships that you normally don't have. And so I mentor a lot of young entrepreneurs in Los Angeles from these underserved communities. We actually do a role play. I'm Damien John from FUBU. You want to start a clothing line? Okay, go. And so we literally do a role play for these young entrepreneurs, having them come up to me and introduce themselves, look me in the eyes, and ask them, you know, can they get a mentorship? But as Alex had mentioned, what's the mutual exchange, right? Are they a graphic designer? Can they actually provide something for a Damien John like that's very, very busy and his time is of the essence? And so a place like this where the red tape and all the hoops is cut out, you need to be here to build those relationships.
Can I build on that just really quickly, because I think that that's perfect for how you think about starting that relationship. We've done research, and there's a lot of research out there that says, how many times do you have to meet somebody before they consider you part of their network? Did anybody guess how many times that is? Just throw a number in there. 5. It's at least 5. So when you go and you meet somebody at a conference like this, hello? Can you hear me? Okay. So if you meet somebody at a conference, just because I met you today doesn't mean that I'm going to think of you as in my network. Doesn't mean that I'm going to introduce you to some of my relationships. I need to meet you a few more times, be able to contextualize you in different ways, right? And so one way of thinking about these relationships is go out, introduce yourself to them, but don't have it be a one-time thing. Go find other opportunities to start a conversation. Send an email. Go send them an idea, right? Have them view you not just in I met you at a conference and you asked me for X, Y, Z, right? And one of the things that at LaFamilia we do is we try and engineer more of those touch points. So maybe before a conference we're going to have a breakfast. So people get to know each other. They're going to get to know each other in the conference. Maybe we're going to do a happy hour at another point, right? To find those opportunities to connect with somebody. So it's a long way of saying, if you find somebody that you want to connect with, find more ways to connect with them than just at one time.
That's a great point. I think people who came here already know about this, but just keep showing up and don't be afraid to call our panelists after this session. And we talk a lot about the challenges a lot of underserved communities are facing, but you know, entrepreneurs are not crying babies. Like all our communities have their unique culture, you know, backgrounds, and how can we bring those kind of unique culture or either it's language, either it's community to the table and turn the disadvantage to our advantage?
I can speak specifically from a Pacific Islander point of view. My day-to-day is apparel, and when I decided that we were going to launch this clothing line, I knew that there was a space in the market of which there was an apparel brand that was inspired by the South Pacific as well as Los Angeles streetwear. And so instead of...
You're wearing your design?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I am. Y'all, Nordstrom.com, you can grab it today. And so before I even harp on that point, again, this was by design, right, Alex? And so when they, you know, I meet someone that, like a Damien John, he's gonna remember the guy with the tattoos and the road shirt, right? So all that is by design. That's another touch point. But going back to what I had mentioned from a Pacific Islander point of view is that I want to harp on this, especially for young entrepreneurs, because sometimes you just want to follow the herd. Sometimes you just want to follow the trend and create that brand, right? When in essence, by being authentic to who you are, to your story, to your aesthetic, that actually, by default, actually you stand out. And from a fashion point of view, that's exactly what you want to do. That becomes your superpower. So I always tell people, whatever it is that's unique to you, bet the house on it.
I think that, I don't know how many of us have seen this picture of what we think an American will look like in 20 or 30 years. But when you see that picture, how it morphs, we're increasingly going to be multicultural. right? And in order for us to succeed in a multicultural environment, you need to be able to embrace all these differences while also building on the strengths, right? Part of the reason why we're talking about Alibaba is because China's done so amazing. They've grown so much, they've incorporated more places. Right? And so I think that as we start looking at how do we succeed, it's being able to take the things that we bring to the table, but also the other pieces that'll help us succeed, right? Whether you're an islander, Latino, or anything else, right? It's all those differences that we can make us successful once we can put them together.
And yeah, I would just add that lean in to that aspect of yourself and your identity that gives you an edge. When I started being a founder, I was 22 and I just didn't understand how the tech world worked or the education sector worked. And I tried to morph myself to fit a specific box, and it doesn't work. I tried it for like 1 month, 2 months, and it just doesn't feel authentic, and it's not good for you or your company, and it just wastes time. And the most important thing you have is time, so don't do that. And I would say that also connect with people that align with your mission and vision. It's really important to understand who you align with on a value level, who has the same goals. And it doesn't have to be from your same community. You can find people from different communities. I had a very international experience, so it's really interesting for me to find things that we have in common with different communities. So, for example, I've worked a lot with Asian founders, and it's like Latino nations, we have this concept of family that's so important. That's a point of conversation, and just like understanding where people come from. It's a show of respect, and that's how you build a repertoire with a person. And I would say also that understanding that there's groups for everyone out there, and just like looking up to them, because affinity groups like LaFamilia Foundation, like for example your organization, it really helps you to find mentors that look like you, that have gone through the same hurdles that you've been through, because it's a way for you to also speed up your process. In my journey as an entrepreneur, I was able to connect with Latino entrepreneurship support organizations, women support organizations, young entrepreneur support organizations, and they help you get connected with the people that will support you and your business, or also for your industry. I ended up connecting a lot with education industry experts and like academics, and also with corporates that understand that sector. So that's also another way to lean into.
That's a great point. I think that's also the best part about starting a business in the US, right? People are so eager to embrace other cultures, even if it's like totally new to them. At this conference, we also talk a lot about like technology advancement, like AI sourcing agent, which is so cool. But as a tech reporter, I also noticed how technology hasn't really benefited like all communities. Do you think that is there any like particular technology or that's already there, or you want that can really help the gaps you just mentioned, like limited access to markets, capital, to mentorship?
Yeah, I think we should harp on that. You know, with the advent of AI, obviously it's going to disrupt every business industry, right? And so being in apparel, what I decided to do was just educate myself from the most basic point of view of how artificial intelligence will affect the clothing industry. And so I know, coming from an underserved community as well as underserved entrepreneurs, we lack that information, that education, and being able to access that is huge, because obviously we want to be at the forefront of that. So whatever, if there's, you know, educational resources here at CoCreate, most definitely we should be able to connect with those folks that really do AI at a high level, in which we can implement that into our businesses from an underserved point of view.
I actually think this is one of the brighter spots when I talk to entrepreneurs. It used to be that there was a couple of obstacles to you being able to use technology, right? There's the cost. It was very expensive to set up a data center or to use AI or something like that. There's education, as you were mentioning, and there's access. I see all of those coming down and being democratized now. We, at this conference, I've been to quite a few sessions where they're talking about using Midjourney, using AI to do product research, to be able to test things. All of that used to be really expensive, right? To go out and do a market test would cost you thousands of dollars. Now I could run a test for $50 or $100. That to me is amazing, that the technology now is coming down to a point where it's just about you learning about it, and the education is out on the internet. It's free. Unless you could come to CoCreate and also get very specific targeted advice. But I see that the technology, the way it's evolving, actually is helping entrepreneurs. It's lowering the cost to starting something and the barriers to be able to be successful. So I'm very hopeful.
Yeah, I would add the same. It's trying not to be intimidated by technology. I work with a lot of SMEs in the US, and a lot of times they'll tell me, I don't really understand what it's saying, I don't really understand how to use it, I need to ask my family members to help me learn how to use this tool. Be comfortable with making mistakes. Be comfortable with like having errors and not making it be perfect at the first trial. So that's one thing that I will recommend to everyone here. If you are not already exposed to the tech industry, just be comfortable with that. I started my company and I remember I leveraged the fact that there's so many free resources on companies like Google and things like that. So go for it and start building a MVP, which is basically your like most basic level of product, and start reaching out to people who might be looking for a solution like yours, and look for clients. We got paid customers with Google Sheets and Google Slides and Zoom. So don't be afraid of putting out there a product that's not like 100% perfect. Use technology to save time and save resources. So there's AI. If you're looking, for example, for grant opportunities or startup competitions, a lot of these things you have to fill out a form on a Google. Try to use AI to give you a little bit of like a kickstart motion there. Like put the prompt, like say, this is my background, this is what I'm doing, and use this to help you write these applications. I've reviewed also some of our founders, they apply and English is not their first language. Leverage those AI tools out there. Don't be afraid, edit it and make sure that it fits your own tone and your own personality. So it's not just copy and paste, but that's a great way to use AI in a very basic way.
We only have 1 minute left. Let's open the floor for questions.
Questions? Anybody? Questions? Here we go.
Well, thank you for that. And I think, independent of that piece of it, I think that what I've seen much more now is that there's all these resources. There's people like yourself who are creating more and more content. And I think what we know now is that people learn in different ways. Some people are really good at reading something or listening. Other people need experiential. They need to actually go in, practice it to learn. And I think those modalities are really important as we think about taking in content and learning it. So thank you for that. And I think that what our groups and others can do is help with that experiential piece. Read something, talk to somebody else who's going through it. How do you actually implement it? What mistakes did you make? All those pieces are very important.
Utilize this place. I can't help to emphasize there's so many successful entrepreneurs that are attending today from so many different industries, right? Please utilize this time to really connect with those that are successful within your industry. Obviously, you've done some research, which is why you're here. Track these people down, corner them in the room, give them your information, build this relationship, because that's where really it starts. At the core of great business is great relationships, and I can't help to emphasize that.
100%. And I couldn't have said it better. I think that you're not alone in this journey. There's others going through the journey itself. There's organizations that create community to help. There's research, there's conferences like this. So don't feel like you have to be in your room figuring it out by yourself. There's a lot of resources out there.
And I would say to follow up on every venture that you're trying to build, it's really important to have that discipline to not get feeling like you want to quit at the first time that you go through a hurdle. I think as entrepreneurs, and a lot of times people will tell you being an entrepreneur is like, you're your own boss. It is harder than being an employee, I would say. And it comes with a lot of struggles and hurdles, but it comes with a lot of growth and opportunity. So have that grit, don't give up, connect with people, follow up, continue going, and the products will come.
And just so you guys know, I'm putting my money where my mouth is, meaning this. I'm in apparel. I was always inspired by Damon John coming up, all right, and his story and how he built Fubu, right? And I knew at some point throughout my entrepreneurship journey that we were going to meet. So what I'm saying is that now that we're actually within the same vicinity, I'm going to do exactly what I'm advising you guys to do. I'm going to walk up to him and introduce myself because there may be some synergy there in which we can maybe collab or something like that, right? So I'm doing whatever advice that I'm dishing out to you guys, I'm doing the exact same thing. Yeah. So.
Have you done that yet?
Matter of fact, Alex is setting that up, so hopefully we can get that done.
Okay, so that's the perfect conclusion to our panel. Please join me to thank our panelists for this great insight.
All right. Thank you all. Great rest of the day.